Hey, I'm Karishmin. Welcome to the Legit Talks Unkahi, a podcast series where we talk about the unknown. And I am your host today. In today's episode, Beyond the Psychs, we unfold what is psychology beyond the books. How do arts as a subject, as a practicing subject, helps it, and how can we navigate our emotions better? Our guest today is Varsha Punarvasu, a counseling psychologist and an expressive art therapist, who has also recently found her own community, Theo Wellness. Come, let's see together what this amazing conversation unfolds for us. See you on the other end. Hi Varsha, welcome to the Legit Talks, and thank you so much to be a part of our talk show. And before we begin, would you like to share with us and with our audience anything about yourself? And then we can begin to know more about your journey.
Sure. So my formal name is Varsha Punarvasu, right? I'm basically a counseling psychologist and expressive art therapist. I also did my yoga instructor course, and currently I'm pursuing my scuba diver course. So I have a lot of other things on the hat coming up right now. But professionally, I've been practicing counseling psychology and expressive art therapy for almost 8 years now.
All right, that's very impressive to know. And I really wanted to also know what was the journey which actually led you to the field of psychology and then also to expressive arts therapy. We would love to know that journey.
So it's actually a very nice journey now when I look to it, because it was actually an accidental course that I picked up with clinical psychology, being master's and bachelor's in one. Because at that point of time, my only thought was I would get 6 months extra to travel, right? But now when I look back to it, I think my entire personal journey, for that matter, I am a single child to a single mother, and we had to leave our entire all our belongings, all our culture and everything in the South. I'm basically from Bangalore. And when we had to move here, I think the entire cultural shock also played a huge part. I think the separation between my mom and dad also helped me a lot in order to understand on what are the struggles, what is trauma, what is the, underlaid emotion that goes on with so much changes going on in your life. And I think I was 12 years old at that point of time. And my mom had a lot of trauma that she carried from her marriage, because there was physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse from not just one person, but multiple people in the family. Right. So I think giving her a shoulder throughout the journey when I was young helped me to understand, to build empathy, how to be compassionate. There were times wherein she used to personally also attack, and, how to be attached and detached at the same time. I think that was a good training period for me. Now it feels like I'm very thankful that my journey had been like that, because when I took psychology, I did not have 11th, 12th as my subject also. Right. But unknowingly, I was anyways inclined towards that field. And I think even as a child, dancing alone in the room was my creative outlet that I used to have. So now when I put two and two together, choosing psychology was an accidental one. But once I started getting more into the field, it made more sense. And it was something that I was made for also. I was trained for since childhood. Yeah, so that is how I ended up here. And expressive art therapy was actually a choice I made, a conscious choice, because I felt that psychology in general is a little limiting, because there are different schools of psychology, there are different techniques that you follow, tools that you follow. But so many times our English vocabulary is very concise, right? It can't express actually what you're feeling. You feel short of words. But actually, I think expressive art therapy is like psychology in motion. Like you're able to reflect very, very much quicker. You're able to understand, you're able to self-reflect in a much, not quicker way, but a more compassionate way. Because you are the one realizing. I'm not the one telling you that, okay, this is the thing that you need to work on. You identify this in your personality. This is the emotion that you're going through. So I think it's more, freeing, rather than most of the techniques that we used. And that is why I chose expressive arts.
I don't know, like normally people say, just to be very one-to-one,
that we shouldn't always say I'm sorry when people have a traumatic experience, because sometimes just to be out there, sometimes the separation or sometimes the courage that one takes to walk out of a troublesome
Mm.
marriage or a troublesome family is more of a blessing in disguise than to say I'm sorry. So I
Definitely.
really
I
value.
think, and it's a matter of time also. Like with time, so many experiences you realize later on in stages that, okay, I know how to handle this because I have been through this. And I think that's a gift. The more experiences, may it be positive, negative, all experiences matter. That's what makes you feel more you, right?
Very true. And when I was actually hearing about your story, I also could relate, because a lot of Indian families, to be really honest, goes through this, because I feel a very major reason is the generational trauma even our
Mm.
parents and their generation carries. And we
Yeah,
never really had the benefit of therapy. They did not have it. Even till date,
true.
a lot of people from our generation are very skeptical to go to therapy. At the same time, a lot more of us is also taking a step ahead. But
Yeah.
we'll come back to that.
Mhm.
I wanted also to know, because I personally I am a mental health advocate. I do come
Mm.
from a background of mental health advocacy as well as awareness. I do like to research myself. I'll come back to myself later. But I
Yeah,
wanted to know,
definitely.
yeah, but I wanted to really know how, of course, I do think so, it does, but I want to take your perspective on how expressive arts therapy and psychology, counseling psychology, or therapy in general, uh, if you think it correlates or interrelates to each other, if
Mm.
not the entire aspect of it, then maybe the benefits of it, and how
Mm.
does it happen? Because since you very well said that psychology in general is restrictive, I personally have faced that when I went for therapy. So
Mm.
I truly believe that creative aspect or something of that sorts help a lot in mental health. So we will like to really know your approach towards it, and how do you think it correlates?
I think somewhere or the other, psychology in general is the one which we depend on ultimately, because it talks about the concepts of your thoughts, your emotions, your behavioral patterns. I think that is a good amount of study that we have in psychology. But when we talk about expressive art therapy, I think it works as a catalyst for psychotherapy, right? And if we go towards the definition of what expressive art therapy is, I think it literally means that it is an other form of psychotherapy that uses art modalities. It's actually another form of psychotherapy itself, right? But when we talk about the assessment part, going deeper into the diagnostic aspects and the symptoms of it, of course, it does not help you with that. Psychology does, right? Expressive art therapy, on the other hand, acts as a catalyst, right? Because when we bring up concepts of psychology, if we take wise mind as one of the concepts that we use in DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, right? So there's this rational mind, there's this emotional mind, and in between comes your wise mind, and we work upon the thought, emotion, and behavior, right? So when we compare that, and if I need to use it for expressive art therapy, I can easily create an activity through which a person draws their emotional mind on what all goes in there in an abstract way. It's not necessary that I need to know what emotions I'm feeling, exactly point out, okay, this is the emotion with the whole emotional wheel aspect. I don't think anyone of us has that awareness, right? Even when I've done this activity with some of the clients with the emotional wheel, but when they're in the situation, it's very hard to remember like 64 words written and go back to the therapy session that you've had. But if you just draw your emotional mind, your rational mind, and then there's a wise mind, and you add in certain doodles and images into it, it acts like a photographic memory. It acts like a reflection. When I look at it, I exactly know I have that picture in my mind, so that when the situation actually comes in, it just flashes in front of my eyes. So yeah, when we talk about psychology and expressive arts, I always believe that they go hand in hand. There are many times wherein otherwise it just becomes an art lesson, right? Otherwise you're just telling people that, okay, let's create a mask and put colors on it. If you don't mix it up with psychology and put a meaning into it, put a purpose of why you're doing something, I think that is where psychology plays a role, and they both go hand.
I feel I do really understand what you are trying to say, because to be really honest, when I myself, being someone, as I said, from the psychological background in like facing things mentally, it's often overwhelming to actually, when we are in the situation, to remember what kind of emotion I am feeling, or to actually
Mm.
name it, because sometimes it's not just anger, sometimes it's not just me being upset, it's a
Mm.
thousand things together. And
Yeah.
I did do a activity myself once. I made a very skewed heart, and then around it put arrows and wrote everything that was going on in my mind, to kind of
Mm.
understand what exactly is going on. Whenever
Right.
I remember, like I go through something, I don't remember, the not much that somebody told this advice to me, or I would really like to also know, and I'm sure our viewers will also like to know, that, as you said, it acts as a catalyst. So, do you
Mm.
think there are many people who do practice art-related activities, or
Mm.
anything expressive-related activities, which
Mm.
contributes to teaching or advocating people around mental health, or activities which kind of contributes to the mental well-being medically, or not just in day-to-day lives also for people,
Mm.
and do
Mm.
like India in general lacks, how much it should be
Mm.
present, because not
Yes.
a lot of people go to therapy, but these
Mm.
activities, any activity which we have learned, right, maybe
Right.
something that you do hobby wise, and maybe
Mm.
something that you do, kind of, as you said, dance was something
Mm.
you really did to let go of the built up you had. So, do you think India lacks a lot of such centers where people teach,
Mm.
or just creates a space maybe for such activities, not solely art, expressive art therapy, but something
Mm.
around that?
I think, like, I've been studying a lot of books nowadays, and one thing I realized is actually we belong to a very rich culture, which used to focus on our physical health, mental health, emotional health, and all of that, right? But I think as the time passed on with Western culture, we lost that essence, because Indian roots does have a lot of mental health practices that we used to follow. May it be yoga, may it be breathing, may it be as simple as rangoli. We all used to put these rangolis in front of our houses, which is nothing but mandala art, right? I think we've lost that essence, and it's very important to get in touch with it again, right? Even when we talk about today's world, we are overly stimulated about everything, but we are very less connected. I think the purpose of being connected, not only just with the people around you, but with our own selves also, is as important. And India does lack it in today's day. If I talk, many ancient years ago, then we did have it, but I think now it's reversed. The Westerners are following more of our Indian roots, and now we have got very lazy, lethargic about these certain rituals or practices that we used to follow. But if we actually understand the meaning of it in today's date, I think as simple as just sitting down is a big task, right? Not using your phone and sitting down for 10 minutes, it becomes a huge task to do, right? So I think simple practices like just get up when you're washing your face, also for that matter. We are always in a rush. It's going to take the same amount of time, right? It's going, if it takes 5 minutes for you to wash your face, it's going to take 5 minutes for you to actually feel yourself washing the face, to be present in the moment. And I think we also lack the concept wherein we give meaning to things that we are doing in today's day. Like if I'm working, I'm just working. I'm not giving meaning into it on how it makes me feel, the emotion that I feel because I'm doing something, because of which we go into the rat race, right? Because sab kar rahe hai, to hum bhi karenge. So I think putting meaning into things is very important, even with the slightest achievement that you do. Suppose if I was not able to get up from bed today, I did not feel like getting up from bed today, but at 11 o'clock, I made sure that my alarm rakhungi and मैं उठूंगी. I am going to wake up. And then if I did that, I think you need to celebrate even the small achievements that you've had, because reassurance and validation is all people need. I think they come for therapy also for the same most of the times, because self discovery happens with you itself. The therapist is here to just guide you and help you to reach that space. But if we start validating and reassuring ourselves for the actions that we take on a daily basis, I think that will make us feel more motivated in order to also heal the past traumas or the generational trauma that we've had. Right, because you need some energy within you to actually fight or confront something. So I think daily practice is just being present, feeling what you're actually doing, and giving yourself validation or appreciation matters a lot in day-to-day lives.
True, very true. I actually had this question for you. I did think about asking you, how can we obviously do lack awareness about critical mental health also. But having said that, people going through day-to-day life struggles, which we cannot really categorize into critical mental health issues, but daily
Yeah.
stress, daily anxiety kind of is a very big problem nowadays. Be it
Right.
students, working professionals, even mothers,
Mm.
and people aren't even aware of that. They will,
Yeah.
we are not having a good day today. But what is the reason they are not present? So they don't know. So I did have a question for you to know that, maybe some things, daily rituals, like how people say that if you take a walk outside in the sunlight, or if you, maybe just be present, or if you sit in the grass, walk in the
Mm.
grass, your natural physical hormones kind of gets activated, and that kind of results in your mood boosts and hormone boosts and all. Yeah.
Definitely. And if you see in today's date, we don't do any particular activity wherein your mind and body connection is stimulated, right? When you say walking on the grass, you are walking, you're feeling a sensory stimulation there, right? Our only sensory stimulation in today's date has become our eyes. Like we are only perceiving, but we are not actually using our other senses in order to be present in the moment. And I think, like you rightly said, the daily rituals, I think it depends on individual to individual on how what they want to follow, because I might be someone wherein a walk outside might make me feel energized, but someone else might be wherein they just need to lie down, close their eyes and take a few deep breaths and they will feel better. So I think it's very important for you to identify which daily routine suits you the best. Some people are visually more relaxed. Some people listen to music and they feel more relaxed. Some people need the physical activity. They need to hit the gym. They need to go for a walk. They need to have a physical release in order to feel better. And some people need to actually sit down, rationally think about the issue that they're facing. They want to make a proper roadmap. They want to put mind maps around it and they want to do it. So I think it depends on what you need to have as your daily routine. And for that, I would not suggest people that when the problem comes, they need to, start thinking on what to do. I think it's better to have like 5 to 10 activities written down somewhere, right? That you feel like doing or you haven't done since a long time. And, that is something that makes you feel better. Have a pre-planned list wherein at any point of time, if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel I need a break, you have a to-go list that, acha, theek hai, I'm going to do this. So once you tick it, you also feel that sense of achievement. You feel nice about it, that acha, I did it. So I think those type of daily routines should be planned.
Very true. Like, because normally what happens is in our, as you said, the rat race life that we today live in, we don't really get time to sit for a moment and kind of do something which makes us feel okay. So maybe we do have some kind of, a little stressful time in our life, in our day-to-day life, which demands from us to actually have that list and tick those things off, which we are not getting today, but brings us a lot of joy. It's very true. But we jumped into the topic of mental health. I would like to take a step back because we are yet to know you better. From the previous conversations that we had from like between us, the team, you were associated to an NGO, and but you chose to take your own path. If you are comfortable sharing, what made you kind of take your own path, and at the same time, if there are any lessons that you would like to share working in an NGO for anyone who wants to be a psychologist, but at the same time, do it non-profit way, because a lot of people have that heart, they want to do it. So we'd love to hear that.
Definitely. So I think the NGO part is a very interesting part of my story, because I started working in an NGO before I joined college. So I was in my 11th grade, and there was this one D that I had, and she and her college friends actually were supposed to start this NGO, right? And there were 4 people, and I was the one who was very excited that I want to do social work. So they said that okay, हम तुझे 5th member बना देंगे. So I was from the foundation aspect. I started with this NGO, and I don't think it was a transition or I ever took my own path, because almost even when I started practicing as a psychologist, I continued my work until 2020 or 2021, until the second wave of COVID. After that, I think the team got dissipated, because of which we had to give the NGO to someone else. Otherwise, I would still be doing it. And I don't think it's a very huge deviation that I'd taken, because since my 11th, 12th, I started with working with underprivileged kids. Right. And at that point of time, my only mindset for people, I would suggest, for budding psychologists, for people who are interested in social work, if you have that mindset, don't go on a particular trajectory that iske baad ye karna hai, ye karna hai, ye karna hai, ye karna hai. Just go with the aim that I just want to do something. Because there's so many things on the plate that you'll get when you go with that open mindset that I just want to learn, or I just want to learn from the aspect of what all I can do. I think that is more fruitful when it comes to social work. So I started something called as ODS, which was overall development sessions, unknowingly. And that again turned out to be an expressive art therapy based workshop that I had planned for them. So we used to do a lot of sessions. I mean, one issue that we identified was in government schools, we only teach them like ABCD 1, 2, 3, and the a very orthodox method of learning, right? They are not introduced to moral science. They're not introduced to behavioral aspects. They're not introduced to daily life challenges and how to face them. So these ODS sessions were mostly about how to manage your finances, how to respect elders and youngsters, how to take care of your body, good touch, bad touch. And there were also concepts like creativity, imagination. So I still remember, I still use it to today's date in my workshops, wherein I used to tell them that, अच्छा मैं आपको खाली पेपर दूंगी तो आप क्या ड्रॉ करोगे? 2 पहाड़, 1 सूरज, 1 रिवर और 1 घर, है ना? तो हम ये नहीं करेंगे. This is a line I still use it, because that is what structuring is, right? We are all structured in such a huge way since our childhood that the first thing that comes to our mind with art is that image. Right. I think to break that has been my ultimate aim with how many ever workshops I've taken. I've taken many mindfulness retreats, and what I've observed is environment plays a huge role. Like when I take these sessions in corporate settings or buildings that are cubicle, I think it takes a lot of effort to bring them out of that structured mindset. It takes a lot of rapport building, lot of engagement, lot of energy of mind in order to bring them into a more relaxed and a creative outlet mindset. But when it comes to mindfulness retreats, when they're already in nature, when they're, able to feel the breeze, they're able to touch the grass beneath them, I think it works like magic. So I've always depended on nature on so many levels to have the impact of mental health along with nature.
This is a very unique observation that we got, because when we think about it, of course, when we are in a restricted space compared to when we'll be in a nature, of course, the thought process, the way we think about life changes. In general, like somehow when I am in a vacation, I think about life differently. But when I am in this setup, working my day out, it's obviously different. But I also got something which I would really like from you to know from the thing you mentioned right now, that 2 things. First, I would really like to know about the fact that you mentioned how government schools lack even the moral science subject. But coming to that, even the private schools, in like the schools we study in or in the city schools, they do have moral science, but they still lack emotional intelligence as a subject, which I feel has been a lot of debate in today's generation, that there are few subjects which are very important for a kid to learn, emotional intelligence being one of them, sex education being one of them, and financial education being one of them, because we do learn about a lot of subjects which later in life doesn't help. But these are the subjects which are so important, because the adults are so much struggling in their day-to-day lives. So
Yeah.
hearing, like, just to hear that in the area where you could teach in the government schools, you actually
Mm.
implemented these workshops, but
Yeah.
the even the city schools lack it. So as a
Yes.
psychologist, you do you have, thought,
Mm.
like, of course you might have thought about it. We would like to
Yeah.
know that if you had any discussions or just, your
Mm.
reflections around
So
these.
I think this connects with the concept that we were discussing also, India in general, right? Even though I've been working since 11th grade with the same concepts and, trying to implement all of these things, I am registering my organization like this month, right?
Wow.
Because it took me a lot of struggle to come to a mindset wherein I can convert this concept into a business model or something like that. Because for the longest period of time, I think it has been a struggle for me when it comes to charging overly for mental health services, which is the general case. Because for me, it has always been like taking a therapy session should not be a stress aspect in your life. When you're coming to therapy and discussing कि बहुत पैसे लग रहे हैं therapy में, so I did not want that aspect. So I had a very slow growth. Like comparatively, I had a very very slow growth with too much work. I was, divided between multiple areas. I used to work with children. I used to work in juvenile care. I used to work with adults. I used to work in an IPD section. Then I worked with a hospital. So there had been so many things I was accumulating. Okay, this was the same mindset I had that I want to accumulate as much knowledge and stuff. But it was a struggle to actually ask for the amount for my sessions. So I think eventually I learned about it, and with 8 years of experience, even now, like I think I've categorized. For students, there's a different price. For working professionals, there's a different price. For geriatric population, there should be a different price. I think keeping one price tag for everyone does not do justice. Right. And coming back to actually what you asked, is definitely I do have plans. And one important factor is the government policies are there. There are multiple government policies, but none of them are applicable. Even the underprivileged kids part that we were working for, we were not running the school to, train them in a proper school environment. But there's this law from the government which says that 5% of school seats must be given to the underprivileged kids, which was not implemented in any of the private schools. So we tied up with one or two schools, and their only their only condition was they need to pass the entrance exam, and then we will give the 5% seats. And kids who have not even studied ABCD, how can you expect them to give entrance exam, right? So we used to train them for 1 year. We used to teach them for the basics as much as they could pass the entrance exam, so that they get those 5% seats. So I think that was the process. And similarly, in mental health also, there are multiple policies, there are multiple bills raised. But I think the implementation of it is going to take a lot of time, of course, because of the system that we have, because of the people in between. And even for the matter of fact, the awareness is a little derailed right now. In between, it was happening, right? I think after COVID, there was a rush of mental health awareness that happened. And now it has become a little vague because everyone is speaking about it. And now people are confused on whom you need to exactly listen, what is the right way and stuff. So yes, definitely my ongoing plan is to implement like workshops, training sessions, and life skills. I think even school counselors in general, I do take training sessions on expressive art therapy and psychology with some organizations. And one thing I consistently tell them is whenever you're teaching something, to first use it for implementation, first make them do the activity and then explain things. That is when we implement it, right? If we don't implement, then it's no point of learning so many things.
It's very true, because I feel when you point it out, I do understand, because what happens generally is we give the lecture first and then try to do things. Then people are
Yeah.
preconceived, like they preconceive some notions about, okay, this activity, and then the
Yes.
experience is, I think, diluted. But this is a very
Yes.
nice approach, actually, to actually do the experiment first. And then
Mm.
this is something I learned today, and I'm sure everybody who will watch this will learn. But I do have two things again. Like, I really should I say, enjoyed listening to everything that you have done so far. Because when you say that you are not yet ready to charge, at the same time, you are
Yeah.
very aware of, there shouldn't be one specific charge for everyone. It's so
Yeah.
true because I
Yeah.
am 22 years old. Right now, I've
Yeah.
started earning. Now I can afford my therapy. But I
Yeah.
needed therapy from the age of, I think, 17 or 18. And back
Hmm.
then, of course, I couldn't afford it and my
Yeah.
parents had to bear the fee. But just understanding about the financial help that goes behind it, it's
Right.
is either heartbreaking or it just kind of, makes me
Yeah.
take a step away. Me being from
Def-
fairly, I would say, privileged background. So I do also
Mhm.
understand that people who are not from even the borderline privilege that most of us have, they struggle from it. And I think they are in most need of the therapy because they have faced so much in life from a very young age. Because they had to live a life which did not give them the basic facilities a child should have, and a lot of other things. So it brings me to
Mhm.
two questions since we were on the topic of child. The first one, of
Mhm.
course, was if you think that India in general having psychological help right now still is very, accessible. Because of course,
Yeah.
just like you said, you do have different charges, but me, I have taken therapy,
Mhm.
I think, from 5 to 6 different psychologists because I did not find the right one for myself. And nobody really had certain kind of, help. And the second one was how the recent news you might have heard about the child being tagged as,
Yeah.
their, like, either blaming their parents or the child itself without any proper context to it. I today
Mhm.
came
Mhm.
across a video by a behavioral coach who is also ex-army officer, and I really
Mhm.
liked the background she shared, that how this child might not need judgments, but a little humbleness and kindness that we could have shown. And maybe if someone has a child like that, then you should sit as a
Mhm.
parent and ask, what is this child scared about? So these are two very
Exactly.
different topics, I feel. Let's
Yeah.
start with the first one, where it is about uh, maybe the financial aspect of it, how India lacks the accessibility because we deeply think it does. And, not a lot of facilities provide pro bono to that extent where it can happen, help the
Yeah.
masses. So,
True.
this is one thing. There's one more thing about India's
Mhm.
governmental help, but I'll come back to that later. Please, if you can,
Yeah.
help us with your thoughts on the
Oh,
accessibility of it.
definitely. I think accessibility, how many ever, I mean, there is awareness now. There are psychologists. People know the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist now, a little bit, not much. Only the urban population, actually. Right. But when we talk about accessibility, I think firstly it is financial because, like I told you, I think there should be categorization of finances wherein the students have a different rate. That's how I've been practicing, and I don't think it's a problem because I've done it myself and I've done my trial and test. I can say it with confidence that you're not going to lose anything, right? Because ultimately your aim is quantity or quality, right? It should not be quantity or quality. So I think accessibility in today's dates, many people are also hesitant about online versus offline therapy sessions. People are confused between, should I talk on the phone, should I talk in person, should I invest this much into it, do I need to travel to a particular center and take sessions? All that is a confusion, but I think it all boils down to the aspect of therapist and client relationship, right? Because honestly, worldwide there are only 30 psychologists for 1 lakh people. Yeah, there's a study from WHO recently wherein it says there are only 30 psychologists for 1 lakh people, for every 1 lakh people. Right. So I don't think quantity will become a matter when it has to come from the business aspect of it. But if you do the right type of modifications, I think when we talk about any type of business for that matter, as psychologists, you need to know how to target a particular audience, what audience should have what type of offers. I think that is where we lack. We set a rate for ourselves, for our services, and limit there. But every population, probably if I go to a rural population, if I'm practicing in a village, then I could charge 200 rupees per hour and my daily living will still go on, right? So your location matters, your people matter, the way you're conducting the sessions also matter, because you may have 10 clients, but if those 10 clients walk away after your first session because you're not being empathetic, compassionate, or you're disregarding their emotions, I think that also matters, right? And therapist client relationship is the one which is actually lacking in today's date, because how many ever clients I have until date, I think most of them have changed like 3 to 4 therapists because they were not able to connect. So even as therapists, I think we lack the training in our masters and our bachelors as well on how to not be biased. We are, trained about the tools, the techniques, how to take the counseling session, what questions to ask, the Socratic questionings and all of that. But I think it lacks the basic concept of detachment. We have not been taught how to detach, how to not bring our emotions or our own personality into a therapeutic setup. I think education aspect, we also need to change some modules that we study. But at the same point of time, accessibility is there, but it is limited because of finances as well as the therapist-client relationship.
This I truly relate to, because as I said, I myself had so many therapists, trial and error with them. And I think what I have personally faced is the rigidity in the detachment they follow or they don't. Because
Right.
I do understand as a client of a therapist that we cannot form personal relationships with the therapist. But at the same time, having said that, if we don't also share just an empathetic that much, how much we can, connect because of the strong rigid wall between us, then of course there will be no point of the therapy, because I need that empathetic touch. I need, the therapist to be beyond only the I shouldn't say ethics, but the bookish tone of it. So just listening like you from a psychologist perspective, sharing the how you might also lack that education because of our system, and its educational system is kind of a good approach, like a different perspective for me, and I am sure the other people who seek therapy. So I really enjoyed knowing this, and also kind of I shouldn't say amazed, but I'm definitely now more aware of the fact of this therapist side of the view.
Yeah. And I think as a therapist, you should ask your client always, like, if you know, like when you're taking the case history, if you identify that they've changed multiple therapists, you need to ask the client on what works for them. Why did they change? Or, what made them change the therapist, so that you can keep that in mind also. Like there are times wherein I'm not a very conventional psychologist for that matter. I do tend to let go of certain things when they don't want to discuss about it and stuff like that. But I think one important question that I've always asked, and when people stick with you for therapy, is because you are also understanding their perspective on what they require. Because according to the books, you are telling them what needs to be done according to the situation. But the empathy part comes in wherein you're actually understanding how the person processes it. No? If you don't ask on why they want what they want, do they want you to be a strict therapist? Do they want you to give them pointers? Do they want storytelling from you so that they understand better? That is how you'll actually take a case history. Just understanding what situations they've been through does not, help of being empathetic. But at the same point of time, it's a minute line between transference and empathy. So there are times wherein it happens that you get into a transference, but I think it's better to be clear at that point of time. Initially itself, like in my first call with a client, I do tell them that sometimes if you feel that I'm stepping over, or if you don't feel comfortable, be open about it. Tell me in the face and we can change it. So I think that gives that conformity to the client also, that she's just another person. I can't, tell her if I don't like her behavior or whatever she spoke. I think that improves the client relationship also.
Yes, true. Because when I do say that I need that empathy, there are a lot of other people who might not need that. They would want straight cut relationship, or so. Yeah, that makes sense, because it's very important to ask what the client actually needs. Before going to the child topic, I would also like to know that research that I did before our podcast today says that in 2017 in India, laws were passed that the insurance companies should include mental health as
Yeah.
like they should provide the financial support for even the mental health treatment, be it critical or the therapies and everything. But then I realized after 2020 it was again passed, maybe I might be
Mhm.
wrong, but it's still not included in every insurance or most of it. They still, just like the private schools lack the emotional intelligence still,
Yeah.
I feel even the government has taken a step, but the private schools or the private
Mm.
companies, they still lack that. So
Right.
I just wanted to know if you have any information to share on that perspective for it, because it might help the people watching who would like to, have some financial support for again helping themselves for their mental well-being.
Definitely. So, as far as I know, in October 2022, the bill was passed, right? So, at that point of time, a very few insurers actually implemented it, not all of them. Even when we talk about the government insurance policies that we have, there is a clause, a small two-line sentence that we have, but that only includes psychiatric disorders, which have
Yeah,
medication also
true,
included in them.
true.
The therapy sessions are actually not paid. I think that is mostly because the prioritization of mental health also. Like, I think it took a lot of time for the government to even realize that mental health is an important factor. But when they did pass a few bills, some of the bills are being followed. Like, I think every organization should have a counselor or a psychologist in place. I think that in today's date, I still see like 50-60% implemented. But when we talk about insurance companies, I think it's a whole game of power, corruption, and all of that. Too many men in between. It is going to take a lot of time. But if someone does want to do some research and they do want to take insurance for professional help, I think they should always depend on taking sessions in a hospital setup because they will have more credibility. If you take individual therapy sessions, I don't think the insurance covers it also, even if you have a severe mental health disorder, right? Because invoice raising is done from individual therapists, right? But when we talk about a proper organization or a hospital, I think there you will have higher chances to get insured for your therapy sessions. And I know it is going to take time. It is disappointing that most of the insurance companies are not implementing it. I think they also feel this sense that there's huge number of population and अगर हम सबको दे देंगे तो फिर पता नहीं क्या होगा. But I think that fear is also one thing because of which they're not doing it.
Because again
But
it
it
comes,
should be done.
yeah, and it again comes down to the awareness, because not a lot of people are aware that it's like mental health issue is very real. They feel that कोई भी आ जाएगा, बहाना बना लेगा, and they will take, and this is very wrong on a certain levels.
Yes.
Being like a mental health advocate person, like हमेशा हमें जो आदत रहता
Yeah.
है दोनों साइड का समझने का, we have that very bad
And I
habit.
think so, and it can be, I mean, ruled out. If you are actually, if you're seeking for insurance, you can have certain conditions or terms. Like there are people who do fake also. I've seen people come to me for therapy sessions because they want to just get a paperwork done for some law based issue that they're facing and stuff like that. But I think ruling out is also very easy in these cases because in today's date we have assessment, we have tools, we have strategies that we can implement and actually give proof. I think law works on the basis of evidence. So if you can provide the right evidence, I think the insurance should be passed. Right. I know it is a little bit of effort, but
Yeah.
it can be done. It's not a very huge thing to do. Yeah.
Exactly. And also the fact it's not just about the insurance. Like even as you said, organizations should have at least one practicing counselor or something. I have just not organization. I have not seen even a lot of schools still have counselors for students. And I think again it comes down to the seriousness that people, because ऐसा
Yeah.
नहीं है होता नहीं है, होना चाहिए and हो सकता है. But I think people do again lack that awareness and that effort कि नहीं, we have to fight for the mental health the same
And
way.
I think even with awareness, policies are very important because awareness can be a lot, but if there are no strict policies from the government aspect also, and if there's no proper structure, then it does not help.
True.
because I can be aware of a lot of things. Again, it's the same concept of therapy, that if
Yeah.
you can hear 1 hour of concepts from me, but if
Yeah.
you're not implementing it, then it does not
It
matter.
does not matter. Yeah,
Yeah,
because you again go back to circle one. Very true.
exactly.
Very
Yeah.
true. Like awareness plus policies and implementation equals to something betterment in the mental health sector.
Yeah.
Okay.
True.
This was a very big thing that I wanted to discuss because again, it comes down to the accessibility part. But now, if we shift a little bit to the topic that we had about the child from KBC, I don't really want to take the names. I am not even aware of that,
Yeah.
but it is a very recent thing. And I also wouldn't like to comment on any psychologist who might have made a assumption, but having said that, as I said, I recently came across a video where people were showing even a little bit of kindness towards how we can help. I would like to know your thoughts or maybe something that you might have learned from this whole incident or set of scenes that followed just around a child's behavior, which
Sure.
should not be ignored, but at the same time, I think should
Mhm.
not be taken that seriously that we pass on judgment straight up. So I would really
Right.
like to know your take on that.
This episode has been brought to you by the Legit Talks. Let's talk legit because every mind matters. An initiative for the common people by the common people to manage everyday stress, everyday struggles, and everyday life lessons. And we hope this initiative makes a difference in everyone's everyday life. Do let us know if you're learning anything valuable from this podcast episode. Let's continue watching, shall we?
So I think somewhere or the other, for me, this entire incident that happened was actually not a necessity. It is something that is not to be highlighted or talked about or anything, because each one of us has our own behaviors. We have our behavioral issues also,
True.
right? And I think that comes from your environment, from your genetics, from your upbringing, multiple factors. So I think and this is one boy who got highlighted because of media, but in general, if you look at the entire population of India, I think you will find most of the children in today's date have this kind of behavior for multiple reasons. Of
And
course,
not
there are
only children.
certain behaviors that go into an extreme, right? But when it goes into an extreme, still then it won't be called a disorder until you diagnose it.
True.
It is a symptom of a child, right? He has started acting out with certain behavioral implications or acts that others might feel is not ordinary. Others might feel that it is not typical, right? But at the same point of time, we can't comment on someone just because it came in the eyes of media, right, without a proper diagnosis. And honestly speaking, I saw the entire reel that was going on social media. I looked at the video, I saw it, but I've never commented or added anything to it also, because I felt that I don't know this child, right? I don't know the child, I don't know the parents, I don't know why this happened. And I mean, it is unnecessary to even comment on it. That is my basic emotion, because I think ethically it is not right to comment, as a psychologist especially, that this child has this issue without even talking to the child. Maybe how many ever symptoms are right there in the face, it would not be ethical for me to put in a term, right? And most of the time people in today's date, I think, lack this basic understanding that disorder may there are certain criterias that you need to have for a certain period of time, for a duration, and then it needs to impact your day-to-day life. I think these are the two main criterias that is written in DSM-5, through which we do the assessments, right? But when we talk about disorders, it has a lot of layers. You can't suddenly develop a disorder. It comes with certain symptoms throughout an period of time. And if I have to talk as a general Indian individual or a citizen, I think when I see such stuff, it is just कि ओहो ये लड़का मतलब सही से नहीं बोला इसने, सही से बिहेव नहीं करा इसने. But we should stop at that. We don't need to cut open the situation. It's not your house to actually be that concerned. Probably the same people wherein we are looking and scrolling down stuff, commenting on things, the same people would have another child at home who is facing some other behavioral issues. We need to focus in our house first and then probably look at diagnosing others, right?
Very true. And I feel it again, like when you said the line that it's not your house to, give a judgment on. I think it circles back to the point a lot of the psychologists and individuals in India, this generation, are actually fighting for. That if it is not your life, you shouldn't be concerned about. How, people throw on judgments like the relatives, or this is what we advocate around. And we somehow did the same for the child. We made the same thing, like even if we are not directly related, or even if we are not really aware, we still kind of behaved what we are fighting against. So I think this is something which you pointed out very true.
And I think that should not be done for your own house also, the judgment part. I think if it's not in your house, I meant that you should sit down and try to first understand like what is happening. I think even in the house, so many times what happens is we go through this transgenerational trauma because we are not asking on why this person is acting like this, and we are not open to communication even in our house. And I think that reflects in our national mentality also, because our national mentality is asking कि they are not asking कि क्या हुआ, it is कि अच्छा इसने ये कर दिया. I think that national mentality will also change when we change individually in our own homes also, right? If my mother is throwing around something, I would not start judging her saying that अरे ये तो बहुत aggressive हो गई है, मैं बात नहीं कर रही हूँ इससे. You will try to understand where is that empathy for the interpersonal relationships around you, right? And we, I think most of the issues in our day-to-day lives also happen because we have the same judgment for our own selves. कि अच्छा मैं ऐसी ही हूँ, right? But I think the basic concept of empathy and just asking the question why is so important. Like you were talking about the daily routine. I think just to ask question on why did I do this today? Why? What was this? What was the purpose of this? What was the meaning of this? We lack that even for our own selves. I think that reflects in our family, that reflects in our friends, that reflects in our relationships, and further going on as an entire nation. So I think that is the root, I guess, of what I felt. Yeah.
Very true. And I also believe in life that people have forgotten the meaning of opinion, the word opinion. Because what we usually do is put opinions on humans, but at the same time, opinion is a word or is a act that you should have for a certain situation, or maybe for a cloth you might not like or like. But humans are not an object to have opinions on. This is a fact that I kind of try to make awareness around in my own environment a lot. But nowadays people just have a lot of opinion around humans, and it is a very like, I sometimes I'm like, are you even like educated around the word opinion? And I'm like, okay. You might also lack that education because of our system, and its educational system is kind of a good approach, like a different perspective for me, and I am sure the other people who seek therapy. So I really enjoyed knowing this, and also kind of I shouldn't say amazed, but I'm definitely now more aware of the fact of this therapist side of the view.
Yeah. And I think as a therapist, you should ask your client always, like if you know, like when you're taking the case history, if you identify that they've changed multiple therapists, you need to ask the client on why, what works for them, why did they change, or what made them change the therapist, so that you can keep that in mind also. Like there are times wherein I'm not a very conventional psychologist for that matter. I do tend to let go of certain things when they don't want to discuss about it and stuff like that. But I think one important question that I've always asked, and when people stick with you for therapy, is because you are also understanding their perspective on what they require. Because according to the books, you are telling them what needs to be done according to the situation. But the empathy part comes in wherein you're actually understanding how the person processes it. No? If you don't ask on why they want what they want, do they want you to be a strict therapist? Do they want you to give them pointers? Do they want storytelling from you so that they understand better? That is how you'll actually take a case history. Just understanding what situations they've been through does not, help the of being empathetic. But at the same point of time, it's a minute line between transference and empathy. So there are times wherein it happens that you get into a transference, but I think it's better to be clear at that point of time initially itself. Like in my first call with a client, I do tell them that sometimes if you feel that I'm stepping over or if you don't feel comfortable, be open about it, tell me in the face and we can change it. So I think that gives that conformity to the client also, that Acha, she's just another person, I can't tell her if I don't like her behavior or whatever she spoke. I think that improves the client relationship also.
Yes, true. Because when I do say that I need that empathy, there are a lot of other people who might not need that. They would want straight cut relationship, or so. Yeah, that makes sense because it's very important to ask what the client actually needs. Before going to the child topic, I would also like to know. The research that I did before our podcast today says that in 2017 in India, laws were passed that the insurance companies should include mental health as like they should provide the financial support for even the mental health treatment, be it critical or the therapies and everything. But then I realized after 2020 it was again passed. Maybe I might be wrong, but it's still not included in every insurance or most of it. They still, just like the private schools lack the emotional intelligence still. I feel even the government has taken a step, but the private schools or the private companies, they still lack that. So I just wanted to know if you have any information to share on that perspective for it, because it might help the people watching who would like to, have some financial support for again helping themselves for their mental well-being.
Definitely. So, as far as I know, in October 2022, the bill was passed, right? So, at that point of time, a very few insurers actually implemented it, not all of them. Even when we talk about the government insurance policies that we have, there is a clause, a small 2-line sentence that we have, but that only includes psychiatric disorders, which have medication also included in them. The therapy sessions are actually not paid. I think that is mostly because the prioritization of mental health also. Like, I think it took a lot of time for the government to even realize that mental health is an important factor. But when they did pass a few bills, some of the bills are being followed. Like, I think every organization should have a counselor or a psychologist in place. I think that in today's date, I still see like 50-60% implemented. But when we talk about insurance companies, I think it's a whole game of power, corruption, and all of that. Too many men in between. It is going to take a lot of time. But if someone does want to do some research and they do want to take insurance for professional help, I think they should always depend on taking sessions in a hospital setup, because they will have more credibility. If you take individual therapy sessions, I don't think the insurance covers it also, even if you have a severe mental health disorder. Right? Because invoice raising is done from individual therapists, right? But when we talk about a proper organization or a hospital, I think there you will have higher chances to get insured for your therapy sessions. And I know it is going to take time. It is disappointing that most of the insurance companies are not implementing it. I think they also feel this sense that there's huge number of population, and agar hum sabko de denge to fir pata nahi kya hoga. But I think that fear is also one thing because of which they're not doing it.
Because again,
it should be done.
Yeah, and it again comes down to the awareness, because not a lot of people are aware that it's like mental health issue is very real. They feel that koi bhi aa jayega, bahana bana lega, and they will take. And this is very wrong on a certain levels. Being like a mental health advocate person, like हमेशा हमें जो आदत रहता है दोनों साइड का समझने का, we have that very bad.
And it can be ruled out. If you're seeking for insurance, you can have certain conditions or terms. Like, there are people who do fake also. I've seen people come to me for therapy sessions because they want to just get a paperwork done for some law based issue that they're facing and stuff like that. But I think ruling out is also very easy in these cases, because in today's date we have assessment, we have tools, we have strategies that we can implement and actually give proof. I think law works on the basis of evidence. So if you can provide the right evidence, I think the insurance should be passed. Right. I know it is a little bit of effort, but it can be done. It's not a very huge thing to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And also the fact it's not just about the insurance. Like even as you said, organizations should have at least one practicing counselor or something. I have just not organization. I have not seen even a lot of schools still have counselors for students. And I think again it comes down to the seriousness that people, because ऐसा नहीं है, होता नहीं है, होना चाहिए and हो सकता है. But I think people do again lack that awareness and that effort कि नहीं, we have to fight for the mental health is safe.
But I think even with awareness, policies are very important, because awareness can be a lot, but if there are no strict policies from the government aspect also, and if there's no proper structure, then it does not help.
True.
Because I can be aware of a lot of things. Again, it's the same concept of therapy, that if you can hear 1 hour of concepts from me, but if you're not implementing it, then it does not matter.
It does not matter, because you again go back to circle one. Very true.
Exactly.
Very true. Like awareness plus policies and implementation equals to something betterment in the mental health sector.
Yeah.
Okay. This was a very big thing that I wanted to discuss, because again it comes down to the accessibility part. But now if we shift a little bit to the child, the topic that we had about the child from KBC, I don't really want to take the names. I'm not even aware of that. But it is a very recent thing. And I also wouldn't like to comment on any psychologist who might have made an assumption. But having said that, as I said, I recently came across a video where people were showing even a little bit of kindness towards how we can help. I would like to know your thoughts, or maybe something that you might have learned from this whole incident or set of scenes that followed just around a child's behavior, which should not be ignored, but at the same time, I think should not be taken that seriously that we pass on judgment straight up. So I would really like to know your take on that.
Okay, so I think somewhere or the other, for me, this entire incident that happened was actually not a necessity. It is something that is not to be highlighted or talked about or anything, because each one of us has our own behaviors. We have our behavioral issues also. Right. And I think that comes from your environment, from your genetics, from your upbringing, multiple factors. So I think, and this is one boy who got highlighted because of media. But in general, if you look at the entire population of India, I think you will find most of the children in today's date have this kind of behavior for multiple reasons. Of course, there are certain behaviors that go into an extreme, right? But when it goes into an extreme, still then it won't be called a disorder until you diagnose it. It is a symptom of a child, right? He has started acting out with certain behavioral implications or acts that others might feel is not ordinary. Others might feel that it is not typical. Right. But at the same point of time, we can't comment on someone just because it came in the eyes of media, right, without a proper diagnosis. And honestly speaking, I saw the entire reel that was going on social media. I looked at the video, I saw it, but I've never commented or added anything to it also, because I felt that I don't know this child, right? I don't know the child. I don't know the parents. I don't know why this happened. And I mean, it is unnecessary to even comment on it. That is my basic emotion, because I think ethically it is not right to comment as a psychologist, especially that, this child has this issue without even talking to the child. Maybe how many ever symptoms are right there in the face, it would not be ethical for me to put in a term. right? And most of the time people in today's date, I think, lack this basic understanding that disorder may there are certain criterias that you need to have for a certain period of time, for a duration, and then it needs to impact your day to day life. I think these are the two main criterias that is written in DSM-5, through which we do the assessments, right? But when we talk about disorders, it has a lot of layers. You can't suddenly develop a disorder. It comes with certain symptoms throughout an period of time. And if I have to talk as a general Indian individual or a citizen, I think when I see such stuff, it is just कि ओहो ये लड़का मतलब सही से नहीं बोला है इसने, सही से बिहेव नहीं करा है इसने. But we should stop at that. We don't need to cut open the situation. It's not your house to actually be that concerned. Probably the same people wherein we are looking and scrolling down stuff, commenting on things, the same people would have another child at home who is facing some other behavioral issues. We need to focus in our house first and then probably look at diagnosing others, right?
Very true. And I feel it again, like when you said the line that it's not your house to, give a judgment on. I think it circles back to the point a lot of the psychologists and individuals in India, this generation, are
Yeah.
actually fighting for. That if it is not your life, you shouldn't be concerned about. How,
Yeah.
people throw on judgments like the relatives, or this is what we advocate around. And
Yeah.
we somehow did the same for the child. We
Mm.
made the same thing, like even if we are not directly related, or even if we are not really
Mm.
aware, we still kind of
Mm.
behaved what we are fighting against. So I think this is something which you pointed out very true. um,
And I think that should not be done for your own house also, the judgment part. I think if it's not in your house, I meant that you should sit down and try to first understand like what is happening. I think even in the house, so many times what happens is we go through this transgenerational trauma because we are not asking on why this person is acting like this, and we are not open to communication even in our house. And I think that reflects in our national mentality also, because our national mentality is asking कि are not asking कि क्या हुआ, it is कि अच्छा इसने ये कर दिया. I think that national mentality will also change when we change individually in our own homes also, right? If my mother is throwing around something, I would not start judging her, saying that अरे ये तो बहुत aggressive हो गई है, मैं बात नहीं कर रही हूँ इनसे. You will try to understand where is that empathy for the interpersonal relationships around you, right? And we I think most of the issues in our day-to-day lives also happen because we have the same judgment for our own selves.
very true.
कि अच्छा मैं ऐसी ही हूँ, right? But I think the basic concept of empathy and just asking the question why is so important. Like you were talking about the daily routine, I think just to ask question on why did I do this today, why what was this what was the purpose of this, what was the meaning of this. We lack that even for our own selves. I think that reflects in our family, that reflects in our friends, that reflects in our relationships, and further going on as an entire nation. So I think that is the root, I guess, of
Yeah.
what I felt. Yeah.
Very true. And I also believe in life that people have forgotten the meaning of opinion, the word opinion. Because what we usually do is put opinions on humans, but at the same time,
Mm.
opinion is a word or is a act that you should have for a certain situation, or maybe for a cloth you might not like or like. But humans
Yeah.
are not an object to have opinions on. This is a fact that I kind of try to make awareness around in my own environment a lot. But nowadays, people just have a lot of opinion around humans, and it is a very
Mm.
like I sometimes I like, are you even like educated around the word opinion? And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Uh, also, coming back to the, as you said, awareness, the therapies, and everything around it, medication is again a very big taboo. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I feel there are a lot of also habits that people advocate around, that
Mm.
it's not about medication is equivalent to daily habits if we change, and we can bring a change to severe critical mental health disorders. But at the same time, a
Mm.
lot of people, me being one of them, to be very honest, who are not very associated or inclined towards medication. Now, my
Mm.
question actually is, I do still understand that there's a certain limit after which it gets uncontrollable where medications are advised. At the same time, before that line, do you think, because you have, a dual perspective as a art, expressive art therapist as well, do you think if we do implement, those kind of habits which makes us more expressive and aware about our own self and kind of helps us implement, we if we take a decision to not take medicine, it can help us. Is it really possible? Is my question.
Okay, so like you rightly said, there are limitations, right? When I talk about the general population, I think one of the major key sentences every psychologist, every psychiatrist would tell you is lifestyle changes karna padega. Right, but when we talk about the daily routines and the practices and working on insight building, working on self expression, it gives you a lot more insight at the very beginning of the symptom that you have, right? It does not avoid a symptom, it does not make your mental health go away, right? It helps you to be more grounded, more understanding, and more self-aware. That acha mujhe ab kya karna chahiye? Like I told you to prepare that list and keep. If I have that list prepared, what would I take in therapy sessions is the same thing along with the medication that the person is having, if it is mild to moderate level, right? But of course medication is important to some extent because our entire mental health is based on this triad, which includes your psychological, social, and biological factors, right? The biopsychosocial model. So when we talk about these three aspects, if your main issue is the biological aspect, if your body is not producing enough serotonin, enough melatonin, enough oxytocin, enough dopamine, all of those, then of course you need medication, right? That is not something that I can argue with. But when I don't consider the biological aspects, when I just talk about mental health, I think yes, it can be prevented. A lot of mental health issues can be prevented, and if you're in the initial stages. So okay, I was saying about the medication aspect, right?
Yeah.
So when I talk about the medication part, of course, for severe disorders, it is required. It is a necessity because, like I was saying, there's again a triangle coming back to that. Not the cognitive triad, but the biological, psychological, and social factors that affect our mental health, right? So that's called the biopsychosocial model. So I think if your biology is the one that is pulling your mental health down, putting your hormones in a disbalanced way, of course, medication is required. I would not deny that. But if you're still in a phase wherein you can see certain symptoms, you're facing issues with handling day-to-day tasks, day-to-day lives, day-to-day issues that happen, or relationship factors that are still in a phase with mild or moderate kind of symptoms coming up, I think it can be handled. I come from a personal experience also, wherein I am not a person to believe in medication a lot for small things. When I was 5-6 years ago, I myself had a very severe condition wherein my bone marrow was not producing enough red blood cells, right? I was in an ICU. The doctor told that nahi ho payega, ghumna nahi ho payega. And for me, I had a travel planned in the next 2 months, and there was so many things going on in my life. I had just finished my expressive art therapy course. I wanted to start doing my field work and stuff. So at that point of time, I was there in that situation for almost a month, but nothing was helping me much. I mean, I was not recovering properly, though I had my friends, I had my mom with me. We used to have a lot of fun, we used to not feel that I'm actually in an ICU bed or a hospital, right? I used to sneak in roadside chow mein roll and everything during that phase. I think that also helped me to survive that phase in a much better way. And secondly, because I had just finished my expressive art therapy course, during that time, I tried something called as guided imagery, right? This is usually used a lot with palliative care also, wherein through guided imagery, you are representing certain things impacting your physical health and stuff like that. So this visualization I used to do used to be a very inner child kind of an activity. I used to imagine myself going inside my body, throwing red blood cells all around my body and stuff like that. It used to be a daily visualization for me. And then very, very nicely, the medication started affecting my health. my physical health. So I think mind and body connection helps us a lot when we talk about not depending on medications. It is possible to the mild or moderate level, but when it goes to the severe level, of course, you need to address the biological aspect. Otherwise, the psychological and the social aspect of the triad, I think it can be handled through consistent therapy, through consistent effort that you also put in. Because I feel that in a 1 hour session, I can give you as many tools. But I always tell my clients that we'll have 1 week, we'll have one tool. We'll discuss only about one tool, implement it for 1 week and see how we feel. And then next, we'll go to the next tool. Otherwise, you won't feel that you're actually improving. You won't feel the effort that you're putting if you don't have one thing focused in your mind. Because one thing I have seen in some of the sessions is there's so much information from the therapist point of view that you want to implement, but you don't know what exactly to implement. So yeah, I think consistent therapy can work without medication. I have a client actually who was having BPD, and she used to take medication for the past 3 to 4 years. She was first diagnosed with depression, then BPD, then she had PTSD, all of that. And there was a brief point of time wherein she left medication and she was able to handle her symptoms, right? There was a brief phase wherein she had severe BPD. So me and the psychiatrist usually work hand in hand when we are dealing with severe cases, so that medication and therapy needs to go hand in hand. If the psychiatrist is giving you a medication which is limiting your thought process, or which is more of a calming effect, if it's giving you more of a calming effect, if it's a sedative, then I of course should not give activities or things to do wherein it takes a lot of stimulation or a lot of thought put into it. Probably I won't be giving a CBT worksheet if the client is already on a sedative, right? So I think when in severe cases, you need to go hand in hand with medication and therapy.
And yeah, I feel personally that this thing where the psychologist and psychiatrist coordination happens is very important, because I think most of us are afraid that people have to take medications for a lifetime, which may be true for certain cases. But again, it comes down to the fact, because I personally have taken medication and I also have went to therapy. So not to put anything out there on the internet, because of course I wouldn't want to give wrong information. But having said that, I think what I lacked personally is that coordination difference, because on one side I had medications which were high on serotonin levels, and I used to be very high on energy sometimes, and my mind was of course low on thought process and everything. I have faced that. But at the same time, when it comes to therapy, it demanded me to kind of also slowly try ERPs and CBT they used to suggest and everything. So I think that coordination was a mismatch. But this is a very important information for anyone watching, that if you are trying to go for a therapy and you are asked to take medications for your certain condition, make sure that your psychologist and your psychiatrist are in coordination. Yeah, and if they are not already in coordination, you can ask them and request them if they can be, because it will be again very much beneficial for you, because I have faced not the coordination thing, and I think that has a big impact, because this is very important. Not a lot of people have that, which you just mentioned. So yeah, I think it's very.
And I think one important factor is also the aim. I think we as mental health professionals should always remember that it is not our aim to make the client dependent on us. We need to make them independent. That should be the ultimate goal. Because when we talk about psychiatry or psychology, for that matter, I think we extend things a lot unnecessarily, which is sometimes not required also, right? There needs to be a particular concept in our minds that you need to help the client get rid of you. It is not to make dependent on you. I think that main purpose we tend to forget because of the whole financial aspect also. And even as a therapist, it is very hard to earn as well. I understand the other perspective also, wherein if you start doing that, then who will come to you? That is a question that everyone has in mind. But I think word of mouth helps a lot in these cases. If you help a client for 6 months, and after 6 months, the client is well developed, he's standing on his own feet, complete, he's able to manage his emotions, he's able to do so many things, then of course that word is going to get passed on, right? If someone has improved, it will get passed on. I think we need to keep that in mind rather than just sticking to the clients we have and trying to extend it for a longer period of time.
I think this is a matter with a lot of doctors also in India when it comes to physical treatments. And of course, I also know that it's also when it comes to mental health. Yeah, so I really I think we came down to the topic of CBT and ERPs as well, and we are very much, I think, aware of a lot of mental health related things right now. So coming back to you again, because I think we need to wrap up the podcast, but coming back to you, I would like to again ask you. You briefly shared about your vision with your therapies and your organization. That congratulations, you just started it and you have made the initiation process. So congratulations on that. For that, we like because you shared briefly. I want to give you the platform also once to share in brief, if you want to, that what do you think your vision with the therapy process or your practice in therapy is.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so thank you for that. And so basically, the name I've given to this organization is called Dhiyo Wellness. So Dhiyo comes from the aspect of Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat, the shlok that we have. Yeah, so Dhiyo literally means intellect. Yeah, Dhiyo actually means intellect. Right. So when I talk about intellect, I think there is the concept wherein we all have one thing that is uncommon from all the living beings in this entire world. That is our intellect. But with that intellect, there are so many possibilities that you open up. It's very important to have a hold on that intellect as well. Understand what it is. I think that is my major aim, to make it more authentic and I think more rooted at some point of time, because in Dhiyo, I just don't want to focus on counseling sessions, but I want to conduct workshops which are meaningful, which are more impactful rather than just being a 2-hour webinar or a seminar to have. I want people to take back things because Dhiyo for me holds a very special place because through my entire journey working with different organizations, different people, I think one basic thing that I want to implement in my organization is to make everything very authentic. Because ultimately, I'm a human being, you are a human being. I've studied psychology, but that does not make me a person of power, right, to conduct your life. I just want everyone to have that space to come be what you are, but at the same point of time for me also to understand on what works with you, right? Even with the aspect of workshops, I think most of my workshops that I've taken today until today have always been a mixture of nature, a mixture of psychology and expressive arts for that matter. I think it's combining all this, and I have been someone who is very, very interested with yoga philosophy, who has a lot of interest in Vedas and our own ancient roots for that matter. And as and when time goes, I think AI is picking up really quickly. I also work with an organization who gives training programs on AI. I wanted to understand that in order to actually undo it in my organization, because slowly and eventually we are all becoming very limited with our intellect. Right. So I want to expand that intellect, and so is the name Dhiyo. Because even the simple concept of creating a mud house, even the simple concept of farming, I think people need to go and experience that, because even that teaches a lot, right? When we talk about expressive arts, what is it? It is just activities wherein you put meaning into it. Even hide and seek, for that matter, when we used to play as kids, it had so much cognition involved in it. You had to do critical thinking, ki kaun kahan chupa hoga. You had to plan. There was this constant, heart palpitation that you used to feel that koi pakad na le. So there's so many skills that you used to learn from your roots, right? So I think that is my aim with Dhiyo, wherein to have authentic workshops, more rooted workshops, more fun, but at the same point of time, impactful workshops on different topics. And counseling sessions, of course, I somewhere or the other believe that, touch wood, until now, how many clients I've had, hopefully they are happy with me. They are taking sessions with me. But eventually my aim is to broaden my quantity along with quality, because I don't want to charge high and limit myself to only the high income population. I want to do a lot for every type of population, and I think to have different programs for each one of them is my goal with you. So yeah, too many goals right now, but we'll be streamlining it. I do already take retreats.
Yeah, please,
Yeah.
please, what were you saying?
I do take some retreats with certain different organizations, and I think I enjoy my work in that because that helps me also learn so much. Because through activities, it's not just the participants doing it, but as a facilitator, also you hear so many different perspectives that it brings about change in you as well. So yeah, I think we should all do that for that matter. I mean, to just sit down and stare, even when you're traveling in the metro, even just if we sit down and observe without judgment, I think we learn a lot. The problem is the opinions and judgments come and poke us, and the meaning is washed away.
Very true. And I really do believe that this was also a question which I wanted to ask. We don't have much time, but still, that as you said, the farming, the natural things. So, do you also think it's a little, of course, a different question? But before that, I'm so sorry. I really, really appreciate everything that you plan to do. And please let us also know if we can help in any way as an
Definitely.
organization. If we can be a part of it in any way, please do let us know. The idea is very nice because, again, everything, as you in the beginning mentioned, goes back to the roots. Because when it goes to the roots, we did not have a lot
Mm.
of things. Of course, India might be in the, I think, the initial ancient and the generation now. I think both are trying
Mm.
to be aware, and that time it was aware, there was awareness, people were evolved. Right now, people are trying to, I think, in the middle where a lot of
Yeah.
chaos happened, and we are again trying to recover from it. And
Yes.
that was one question I wanted to ask, that do you think the degradation in natural elements of the weather and like pollution, we have started staying inside more, the heat
Mm.
rising very much because of the sun getting closer and everything, people don't go outside that much, and we stopped connecting to the nature how much we used
Yeah.
to, farming being one of
Mm.
them. People like now
Mm.
think, why will I work in a field? That's the
Yeah.
ideology, because for them it is like degradation of their status maybe. And also that's one part of it, the social taboos
Mm.
related to certain things. At the same time,
Mm.
there's this thing that the natural weather calamity is happening because we're not taking care of Mother Earth. So, do you think that
Mm.
also has a direct relation with the mental degradation?
Definitely. I very strongly believe in that. I think in our previous discussions also, when I was talking about the room versus when you go outside, it has a lot of impact on our minds, right? Because we are constantly seeing constructions and constricted environments, our mind also becomes constricted to so many levels. And coming back to the topic, but I think when we talk about the environmental degradation, this has always been the case. Even 10 years ago, if you see the statistics of depression, I think London was at the top because of the gloomy weather they have. Right. So there was, I don't remember very quietly about the percentage or anything, but I do remember that about the weather, I had studied this research paper wherein weather had a major impact on stuff. But at the same point of time, I would say, I mean, it is something that is in our control, but not very quickly in our control. I think it will take a lot of years to revive environment back. But at the same point of time, I did manage a few properties in the mountains for some period of time. And when I was doing that, what I observed with us as people, like I would really request all the viewers also to pay more attention to this, is when we go into such environment, right, we still tend to degrade it. Even if there are places existing until now when you can go, you can actually get connected with nature. But when we go there, we still have the same mindset ki DJ chahiye, daru chahiye, party kare. But that is not the purpose of why you went there, right? So I think that is one factor we need to keep in mind, that we need to respect the environment, and that is when that will also give us back. Right, that is one aspect of it. And people who are already loving and loving nature, and they are, doing their best to preserve it. That's a good job that we are doing. But about mental health aspect, if you can't go travel and find those places, I think since 6 months I've been staying in the city, and it has taken most of my mind to share my personal experience. I can't sit in the cities for more than 1 month, 2 months, because it does consume a lot of your mental energy, your physical energy, all of it. But recently, what I figured out is I go to my terrace, and the only thing I do is there's one tree. In the whole city, there's one tree right beside my house. And on the terrace, I observe only two things. There is one star that I can see, and there's one tree that I can see. So I start doing focused meditation towards that. So even if you're just observing, even if you just sit down in that empty space, under that empty sky, it is still much better than sitting in your room, right? Even a garden with plants. Like I have 2, 3 pots in my balcony. I just go, I sit between them. So there's no other stimulation, right? So I just go sit between them. Even one leaf, if you just invest your 2 minutes, observe a leaf, observe the texture of it, observe the color, right? Even that soothes you a lot. I think people have this restriction also that अरे मैं तो city में रहता हूँ, यहाँ पर तो सिर्फ malls है, मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ. But even the smallest things, even if you have a plant at home, you can make a lot out of it. But we do have limitations and blockages in our own mind also sometimes.
Very true. And why I was smiling the entire time is because our host, sorry, the founder who was going to be also the host, founder of the Legit
Yeah.
Talks, Zui, I call her Zui Di.
Mm.
If she were in my place, she could have related so much because this has been her routine as well. Just the way you
Okay.
shared, she in the evenings go in the terrace and observe those stars, observe owls, and she actually takes
Yeah.
in a lot of nature. So hearing,
Mm.
because I myself want to do that, so I had
Yeah.
have been in conversations with her, and I clearly can relate when you say that you don't always have to go and find the natural elements because you have something or the else around you first.
Mm.
Second, if you're going to a place, then please
Mm.
make sure to go there and enjoy it for it what it is, because you don't have
Yeah.
to go at every place and do the same
Yeah.
routine and expect different outcome out of it. It is not possible.
Exactly. True.
uh,
True.
this was a very, very nice session. Just two more questions, I'll wrap it up. One
Sure. Sure.
is
Sure.
I would want to really know something from you. You being a uh, counseling psychologist as well an expressive art therapist. If
Mm.
we take that aspect a little far from you today,
Mm.
and you are just yourself, Varsha the
Sure.
human, uh,
Yeah.
what do you think in your day-to-day life you do for yourself
Mm.
and to give back to the community that you are trying to build a life around or for? If we
Mm.
take the aspect out, because I personally do have an idea of after the whole conversation we had, but just to give the
Yeah.
viewers a perspective.
So I think talking, if I was not a psychologist and an expressive art therapist, right? Okay, I think this comes back to my childhood, all the techniques I used to implement in my childhood. And now I think travel plays a huge part in my life. I started traveling solo almost to 10 years, 12 years from now. And it has shaped me into a whole new person. But at the same point of time, I'm more connected to my inner child as well, right? So travel is one thing that has held me strong. And secondly, I think this constant aspect of I'm my own anchor helps me a lot, because whenever I'm generally walking in the street also, I tend to smile. I like to say hi, I like to smile at people and stuff like that. But eventually there used to be this concept in my mind wherein I'm in this reality game, right? This was a concept that I used to use. I still use it sometimes. That I'm in this reality game. So if any hard situation or challenging situation comes, it is like there are cameras recording me, and I need to be the anchor of my own situation and stuff. I mean, it is very childish to some aspects, but I think that has helped me survive a long way through most of my hardships, because I think it comes from my own childhood experiences also. Because if I was not my own anchor, I could not help my mom. And
Yes.
similarly, I even in my friend circle now for that aspect, I know I want to stay strong so that I can help them. I think that gives me a lot of strength. It does bring up a lot of pressure also, personally speaking. That हमेशा मैं ही क्यों सुनूं, हमेशा मैं ही क्यों बोलूं, मतलब मैं दुखी हो नहीं सकती क्या? I think at those points of time, the one thing is I need to speak out. I learned it at a very later stage to actually have boundaries. I was not good with boundaries. I used to be like, चलो ठीक है वो मांग रहे हैं तो चले जाते हैं. But then now when I recently started standing up and I used to tell that यार मेरा mood नहीं है, I actually also understood that you can receive love when you actually express it, right? Because no one had seen me for 20 years that I can be emotional or vulnerable. They did not know, right? So you need to give the other person also that much time to understand on what you need. I can't suddenly become vulnerable in one situation and the other person does not know how to react and I close myself again. I think that is the eventual progress that happens. Even when I look at myself, if I'm giving a particular help or a suggestion to someone, it comes after a period of time, right? It does not come at that particular situation. So I think I need to also give time to people in order to understand me, which we lack if we are those strong independent women. So now I feel that I am a strong independent woman, but with a respect that I have for my own self also.
Very true. Why I was laughing again or smiling again in the beginning is I myself do feel like now, because I've grown up a little, I have tried restricting myself a little, but I myself, ever since I grew up, always used to think that someone is watching me and I need to act my
Yeah.
life. And it was not a very toxic kind of thing. It was actually very cute. Like you shared, a childish thing
Yeah.
which kind of kept us going and show up in life in the most beautiful way that we could. So
Yeah.
that's why I was smiling, because I could relate to that. And also the fact that, because we grew up in a family, I feel so, where we were not, uh, like our boundaries when we had growing up, whatever minute ones we might, were not respected, or we never
Mm.
knew how to respect others because we never knew what boundaries were. We, as adults, kind of are relearning everything and relearning to be an adult,
Mm.
which kind of breaks a little bit from that pattern, but also is aware
Mm.
for others that, yeah, they might be going through something, and we should also give them the chance to at least understand where we are coming from. This is
Exactly.
very, yeah, very important. The
Yeah.
Coming back to just summing everything up, so as I think you must have known that we have started a campaign, this mental health day, World Mental Health Day, and it is to go on for a few months, which is Let's Talk Legit, because every mind matters. And with this campaign mainly we aimed to bring a little bit more shift towards the daily
Mm.
stress, anxiety, and
Mm.
anything that people face daily, which again, as I said, could not be critically labeled, but again is
Mm.
as much as important, because those are the things which really, I think, again contributes to things which kind of becomes a disorder, because if not, we don't have a
Mm.
space for people to share. And a lot of us, first, some people actually don't have the space. Second, people have that space, but because they grew up
Mm.
among an environment, maybe their friends, or maybe just in general, who make them feel that they don't have that space, and they
Mm.
restrict themselves. So we kind of initiated this campaign with the idea to create a space for everyone to have a
Mm.
judgmental free zone where they can speak about their daily struggles. We aim to host roundtables or conferences or just a support group where people can just meet up and they can talk. It's a long process, of course. We are trying to
That's a
build a
beautiful concept, though. I think it's needed. It's much, much needed.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know if you do you think that there are few anything that you can suggest to us to make
Mm.
this campaign or initiative better from a psychologist perspective,
Mm.
because you would know better how people going through
Mm.
daily struggles actually need that space and help. Secondly,
Mm.
also any suggestion if you would have for the
Mm.
viewers who are not directly related or associated with our campaign yet, maybe
Yeah.
worldwide, not only India
Right.
based. So any suggestion for even them, who are not directly
Mm.
related, that how can
Mm.
they do better to create a
Mm.
space for not only others but themselves, and then also
Mm.
again for their loved ones. So
Right.
the stage is all
Okay.
yours.
So I think firstly, that's a beautiful concept of the roundtable and these group sessions that you can have. I think one recommendation that I would have is most of the times when there's a roundtable situation wherein there are 5 to 6 people, 10 people sitting together, I think everyone is going to come from a very different perspective. So I think it should not be structured, but it should be semi structured, wherein there is one person who is there to actually direct things in the right way, because you never know what the other person is carrying, right? So, suppose if there's one person who is constantly talking and the other person is not getting a chance, there must be a mediator to probably give it a semi structure that, okay, let's do this, let's do that, and all of that. I think that's the only thing. But I think the freedom to speak is like our constitutional right also. Everyone should speak. But when it comes to roundtable and discussions about mental health and people getting that space to speak should be semi structured, because there are times wherein every personality is different, right? You never know who would actually need a little push, who would actually need to have a little limitation in order to share the next time. I think that is important. That's the only thing. Otherwise, it's a beautiful concept, right? And coming to the aspect of how, if when people can't access, when they have no access to mental health comes into play, I think even daily practices of your own self, like I mentioned before, just to ask why, to put meaning into what you're doing, helps a lot. Like at some point of time, if I have to get up today and I have no motivation to do that, even if I'm doing it, I'm asking myself, why am I doing it? Introspection and retrospection is one of the most important factors that you can do for yourself. And I think decentering from the problem, most of the time when people want therapy because I'm not able to handle my current situation. The multiple people, I think 80% of people know what the problem is, know what they have to do, but they can't implement it, and that's why they're facing the issue, and that's why they're coming to therapy. But as an individual, if you do have no access to it, I think sitting down and giving the third person perspective, right, and decentering yourself from the problem. First of all, you need to be outside the problem in order to solve the problem. Just think about it like, if I am your friend and I'm coming and telling you that all this has happened in my life, your ultimate response will be empathy, it will be advice, it will be suggestions. And या चलो बाहर चलते हैं, mood change कर लेंगे. That will be your normal response. And I think we all have it inbuilt in us, but for others.
Yeah.
But when we decenter ourselves from the problem and when we write about it, I think writing works beautifully because, again, like art, it works as a reflection. So write down what you're feeling like, decenter from the problem, write it down, and then talk with it like a friend. I think you'll get most of your answers in that when you give the third person perspective. And I think it should be done on a daily basis, not when the problem comes. Even for good things, sometimes you need to decenter, look at the good thing that has happened to you and be grateful about it.
Very true, because as you said, we often do have those solutions or maybe an empathetic nature towards our friends and loved ones, but we don't have
Yeah.
that for ourselves. And someone said, no, lightly, that you should be your friend first. That means you should know how to, handle yourself as a friend first, maybe. Wow, that was a very, very beautiful session. I really, really enjoyed every bit of it. I got to learn a lot actually, because being someone who really, really adore the concepts or conversations that people have around mental health, because I feel it's a very, nurturing and very soft topic, which people have made such, like right now, I feel such a heavy topic around, because I think the the topic itself is very nurturing, the topic itself is very soft, but just the idea that okay, mental health is something we can't see and it makes people mad, this very bad concepts kind of takes the joy out of the conversations, and I think that needs to change. And I hope from our podcast, from the initiative, from Deho, everything kind of, the we lead the way towards that generation again, that India again, where people kind of, takes natural responses as a treat, not a treatment, but a space for mental health well-being. I think is very important. um
Right. mental health, like you said, is actually a very simple concept. Right, but we do have terminologies. We have so many. I come back to the topic wherein we are overstimulated but underconnected, right? Because we need to connect more in order to understand another perspective. Just listening to other people also sometimes helps you a lot, right? We lack doing that. Just listening, not opinionated, not judgmental, nothing. I think we should all do that at some point of time when it especially comes to mental health. And what exactly is mental health? It's just not your mind, right? Your mind, body, everything is connected to it. Your whole existence is connected to it. If you know that you are existing in your mind, that is why you're existing, right? So I think, yeah, it is a
Very
simple and
true.
a very essential topic.
Yeah, and it kind of also, if we dig very deep, it's like, how people say, and even in our ancient Gita also it's mentioned how, we as a soul is a very different
Mhm.
concept from the body.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
people often do understand for, things, okay, Gita says that, but to implement that really is the tough part, I feel, and that's why everyone makes everything very rigid from where
Yeah,
they come from when it comes to mental health. This was a
definitely.
very, very nice talk. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed. This was actually very different from most of the podcasts or even any meeting as such, for that matter, because I think psychology is a certain field wherein when you are talking, there are so many things coming into play. So I think this was a very semi-structured approach wherein there were questions, but we were actually in a conversation. It was not like a script that I had to refer to. And I think even the preparation for that matter, I heard your name, let's talk legit, and I was like, okay, we need to talk legit, that's fine with me. It was more easing to not actually have to prepare, not actually have to sit down, make notes and stuff. So I'm glad that you guys invited me to.
We are so glad to have you, and actually, that's the motive with every the shows that Zuidi has hosted for, I think, the past 3 to 4 years. We have had
Mhm.
100 guests on our show till now.
Yeah.
I think 100 plus. And the only gist that Zuidi had was she used to be in a very flowing conversation, because the motive behind Legit Talks is that we often have very structured podcasts around, talk shows around,
Mhm.
and we often
Right.
promote the people who are already popular, and
Mhm.
those are the same things we hear, and but people don't really want to know from people who actually made it there, because they are
Right.
not accessible right now. So the idea
True.
was that we have to have people on our show, the common people,
Mhm.
or the people whom we can relate to, because they are
True.
accessible, and
Right.
seeing them struggling in their day-to-day life themselves and coming and sharing things kind of gives us a different perspective in life. So that was
Definitely.
the core of the Legit Talks. And with mental health approaching, we kind of launched this campaign, Let's Talk Legit, because every mind matters, because we truly feel it does. Everyone's mind matters. Me being someone from the mental health thing, and also Zuidi, kind of, very humble and kind, and the entire team, Diksha, Shantanu, we have
Yeah.
on board. Uh, everybody of us feel very deeply towards mental health. So that is, I think, the
True.
reason why it's
And
so
I think it's very beautifully done as well. And I think you'll do a lot more things also. Let's talk legit. And I would love to be associated going on further as well. Definitely.
definitely. We'll again reach out to you because we have something more in stock for you. The team will again reach out to you because again we had a very nice time, and I really am very glad that we had you as our first guest on the campaign.
Glad.
Yeah, yeah, because I
Yeah.
feel normally what happens, again, coming back to that thing, that people often take it as business now. Lot of us do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
having someone who doesn't take it as business was the honor
Yeah.
that we could have. You know how they say
Mm.
universe aligns and, things fall into place. I think that's how
Definitely.
God and the universe helped us with this. So I'm really glad to have you.
I'm glad. I'm sure you'll get 100 more now.
But I really hope you had a nice time with us.
Definitely. A lot, a lot. I enjoyed this conversation. I didn't even realize that it's
It's
almost 1.5 hours.
Yeah,
I
I
did
myself.
not.
It's more than one
That's
and a half
great.
hour, 1.5 hours. It's, I think, 5 minutes
Yeah.
more. And of course,
Yeah.
I had some technical issues in between, but uh,
That's okay. It happens.
okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah,
Did
I
it
was
work?
just trying to do something so that, we can have a very maybe we can do this as a sign of
Yes.
yeah. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Yeah, we can have a really nice one, a nice thumbnail out of it. Great. I really,
Cool.
really had a very nice time.
That was it for our talk today. I hope you had a great time listening to us. See you soon with another episode. Until then, stay connected. Oh, yeah, also, don't forget to follow The Legit Talks, Theo Wellness, Varsha Punarvasu. Thank you, and this is Karishmin signing off.